Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so happy to have you guys all here right after lunch. I'm Carlin Carnahan. I head up the property casualty business for Celent. We're an analyst and advisory firm, and we do a lot of research on technology and the insurance industry and some of the strategy and trends behind it. And I'm going to talk today about two different studies that we've recently done that around the independent agents, what they say, what they want, how they actually behave. And I'm hoping to leave time at the end for some questions. So if you do have questions, please feel free to come up and to the mic and ask the questions. And if you'd like a copy of the slide deck at the end, just give me your card and I'll email it to you tonight. So optimizing the independent agency experience. Let's talk about what is driving. Oh, and there's a safe harbor, which I'm sure you've read. Let's talk about what is driving the need to optimize the independent agency experience. There is a lot going on in the world of the independent agency. Shifting customer expectations, right? We've seen this ourselves with policyholders. They expect to be able to engage anytime, in any manner, for any kind of transaction or question. Now, the problem is agents aren't really open 24 hours a day, are they? In fact, when you ask an agent what makes you different from anybody else out there, any other agent on the street, they'll say it's our service. But when you ask them, how do you handle service after hours? I have had many agents tell me, my customers don't really need that. Now, the reality is customers do need this, and so agents are trying to figure out how to deal with these new demands of the policyholders who want everything instantly and want to have more control. And so this is requiring, obviously, this digital transformation, and I'll tell you, the agents are a little intimidated by this. They worry that they will be disintermediated. They worry about people buying directly from the insurance companies. They're not as worried about the online agencies, but they're quite worried about buying directly from insurance companies. They recognize that digital transformation requires an investment in technology, but a lot of them don't have the money. They don't have the talent. I did a study recently where something like 30% of the agents don't even have somebody full-time managing IT. So if you don't have IT resources, how do you make this digital transformation? And at the same time, the technology is what will be used to help drive margin downs, right? So the margins are increasing for the agents. You need technology to do this. You need technology to manage the digital transformation, and you have no people to help you do that. You don't have the knowledge. And lastly, there's this changing workforce. The Department of Labor statistics show that 29% of all employees at insurance agencies are over the age of 55. What do you do if 30% of the population retires in 10 years? Right? You have two choices. You can continue to hire and train, but many agencies don't have training staff. So it's kind of on-the-job training, which of course then takes away from your existing people. Or you can try and automate the task so that you need fewer people. So this is what they're hoping to get from you. Automate the task through the portals, make it easy, help us train them so that we can offer great service and meet our customer expectations and use the technology wisely. So a lot of things happening in the independent agency world. We asked the principals in one of these studies how much you agree with the following statements, and 81% of the principals, almost all of them, said we are putting more focus than ever on managing expenses. 76% said I would send more business to insurers if they improved their technology and made it easier. 66%, I worry that policyholders are shopping more online and what that might mean for our agency. 63%, we're finding it increasingly difficult to grow revenue. And 59%, more than half, we're having problems finding qualified account managers and CSRs. So agents are going through this massive transformation themselves. And by the way, with that retirement, with 30% retiring, we're also seeing an increase in mergers and acquisitions. And I'm going to talk about that a little later because there's a technology impact on that. So we did two studies surveying agents. The first one, 225 respondents. I did that one back in May. So that data is 5 months old, 6 months old. And the second one, 231, we did in August. This is pretty recent data. We cut it across a wide variety of sizes of agencies so that we could understand whether there were differences in how big agencies and small agencies responded. We looked at the respondent type, principal, producer, CSR, and other, which often was finance or marketing. And we cut it by age group, and I'm going to show you something fairly surprising. So let's start with the actual data. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of data here, but don't be intimidated. I'm going to walk through it. Okay, so the first question we said is when you think about where you're going to place business, what causes you to choose one company over another? How important are the following factors when it comes to choosing where to place business? So this is how many people rated it a 4 or 5. Number one, 90%, 91% said price. Is anybody surprised? I was actually surprised, I'll tell you, because I was watching the data as it was coming in until a few days before the survey closed. Ease of doing business was number one. But those last folks at the end, price drove it over. But you can see ease of doing business is 1 point behind, which actually makes it the same. And so you got to have a good price, but you have to be easy to work with. And look at this relationship with the carrier. I want them to know me. I want them to value me, to value my role. I want them to trust me. Good claims and risk management, accurate and simple compensation, clear appetite. Look down here at the bottom. Commission is down at the very lowest end, right? 72%. Whether it's the commission or the preferred producer programs. And way down at the bottom, participation in comparative raters. Now I'm pointing this out because we're going to get back to it momentarily. Okay? So all of these things clearly are important, right? Whatever you're doing, you have to do it, right? You don't get to say, oh, well, we're going to slosh on one, because if you got 70% of the agents saying this is a 4 or a 5, okay, then you have to respond to that. We then said, okay, thinking about the carrier where you personally place the most business, how do they perform on these dimensions? And look at here, price suddenly is not number one. So they'll tell you price is most important. But look at this, the relationship with the carrier is what actually drives that selection of where to place the business. So best thing you can do to solve that relationship problem, answer the phone. Agents are very clear, just answer the phone when I call, that is like everything. And look at again that ease of doing business, again, is number 2 and only separated by 1 point, which makes it essentially identical. And then comes price. And look at here, compensation still way down at the bottom, but comparative raters has risen. Those carriers that are getting the business are participating in comparative raters. Now, compensation and commission is important to some agents. It is more important to young agents, right? They're just trying to build their book of business and make some money. They're more important to mid-size agents. Small agents assume they're not going to get to participate in some preferred producer program. Large agents assume, of course, they will. But the ones in the middle, it's aspirational. Obviously, it's more important to the principals than anybody else, but those agents in the middle are the ones that may be the most responsive if you modify your compensation program or your bonus program. That may be more effective at helping generate more growth. This is just another way of looking at it. Put them side by side and mark them there on the quadrants. And so this is their best carrier, and their best carrier is doing pretty good. The things that are the most important to them, they're performing very well on. You can see the bottom axis is how well they're performing. The side axis is how important is it. So those are areas that they should be monitoring and making sure that they don't mess it up. The areas down in the bottom, they're performing pretty well, but they're not as important. So again, maintain it. You don't want to mess it up, but it's not really as important. Way down here on the far right side, things like the comparative raters, the preferred producer programs, those are areas where they think that the carriers could perform better, but again, they're not that important, so you can put them on the back burner. And then way up at the top, if there were things in that area, that's where you should prioritize your investments. So my suggestion to you all is, as you're creating your own agency surveys, is to think about plotting them that way, because it can help you think through the prioritization of different kinds of techniques. We asked them, what could the insurers that you work with do better to get more of your business? And this is just be a better insurance company. Could you just be better? I need a competitive price so that I can sell it. I need competitive products. Give me something that's different. Give me something where I can sell you more if I have an edge. If you don't have price, have some cool feature, right? Don't be the one with the most exclusions. Open it up. You have to have a good claim service. And look at this, brand reputation, pretty important, right? About half of the carriers said, agents said, you've got to work more on your brand. It is easier for me to sell this business if they know who you are, if the policyholder knows who you are. If they don't know who you are, I might have a hard time selling you over a name brand. So do your advertising, do your social media, build a brand. You could be easier to work with. Fast, responsive underwriting. And here we have, 60% said that was a 4 or a 5. Just get faster, be more responsive, answer the phone. And by the way, this can be handled with technology, right? You can do this online through your quoting process. You can put in instant chat. You can put in chat bots, and you can answer the phone. A quick quote, a way for me to very quickly get the price, because I'm on the phone with a customer who just wants to have some information, so how quickly can I do this? Online application submission, instant issue, fast delivery of policy documents, and look down here, use of comparative raters, 54%. And so while they said that this was one of the least important areas up front, they also said that their preferred carriers are doing this, and they're now saying more than 50% say, we need you to be doing more with this. And the explosion of comparative raters in commercial lines, I think, is driving some of this. The expense of getting multiple quotes, going to multiple carrier portals and getting multiple quotes is really hard for an agent. But with COVID especially, what we saw was that the policyholders, the small businesses in particular, wanted multiple quotes to make sure that they were getting the options, that they were getting the best option. We did a study last year, in December, I think, where we asked the policyholders what they thought of the buying experience, and the number one thing that they wanted improved when they buy insurance is they wanted multiple quotes. So the comparative raters are an easy way for the agents to get multiple quotes. Now, of course, carriers aren't so happy about that because you don't want to be spreadsheeted, right? But if you have a brand, you can command a little bit of a price increase. So these things all pull together. They all connect. What else could they do to get better, to get more of your business? Manage compliance and compensation. Now, this seems like a really backroom kind of a thing, right? There's, one department that handles finance. It seems like a very backroom kind of a thing. But it turns out this is becoming more important because of the mergers and acquisitions that are happening in the world of the independent agent. Again, 30% of the agency staff are getting ready to retire, and that includes the principals. So the principals are looking to exit, and their children don't always want to take over the agency. And so we're seeing more and more mergers and acquisitions. When one agency buys another, they suddenly have to make sure everybody is licensed, that everybody is appointed with the different carriers, that the appointments have been processed with the Department of Insurance for each writing company. And the more that this happens, the more burdensome this work is. And so you see, what could they do better? Well, they would like contests. By the way, that was almost 100% CSRs. They really like the incentive trips and the contests. Preferred producer programs. Again, this is more highly valued by the producers. Self-service tools to monitor or manage their bonuses and compensation. Competitive commissions and contingencies. Marketing, training, practice consulting. Help me grow my book of business. Give me social media content. Give me social media tools. And this is particularly important to the younger producers and the younger principals who are in the process of building their business. The older producers generally they just want cash. But the younger principals, the younger producers, they want help growing their book of business because of the recurring revenue stream that comes from this. Social media support, an easy producer onboarding process, again, because of this mergers and acquisitions. Self-service licensing so that they can easily just manage the process of getting all of these new producers, working with your company, and electronic license verification to help them manage it themselves. So, be a better insurance company, be easier to work with, and provide us with tools to manage compliance and compensation more effectively. Now, this to me was the biggest surprise of the entire survey. We asked the agents, how do you prefer to interact with the insurance company? And the choices were that dark blue is, I prefer to just use technology. I don't want to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Let me do it use your portal. Let me just use technology. The second one, the mid-size blue, I prefer to start with the technology and then pick up the phone if I have to. And the third one, the dark green, I prefer to do everything via phone. I just want to talk to people. And then there was, I don't really care, whatever. Here's what surprised me about this. 29% of Gen Z said that they would prefer to just pick up the phone. The biggest of all of these different cohorts. We have this idea that it's the oldest generations that want to avoid technology. But look at this data. It's actually the youngest generation. Look at the silent generation. Those born between 1925 and 1945, not a single one of them said that they wanted to pick up the phone. They all wanted to use the technology. Now, this is, in my mind, quite surprising. And you see that that number shrinks as you get older, 29, 28, 23, 17. And so the older you are, the less likely it is that you want to talk to a human being. Why is this? I mean, Gen Z, they're the digital generation, right? They're the ones who prefer to use their thumbs to do everything, right? It's not like they're afraid of technology. I believe, and I don't know, we didn't ask the question, I believe it's because they're new to the business. This is a complicated business, and they are consumed with errors and omissions, absolutely consumed with it. It guides everything that they do. I was talking to a CSR once about a particular insurance company, and she said they launched a new tool on their portal where I can do my endorsements on the line. I can request endorsements. She said it's really fast, it's really easy, and I'm never going to do it. I'm like, well, why? It was fast and easy. She said, because I don't get confirmation of what I requested. So if I request an endorsement, and the underwriter doesn't get to it for a while, and I have a loss in between, I have no proof of what I asked for. So I won't do it because of errors and omissions. And so what you see here is you see a group of people who are new to the business, new to a very complicated business, who want to do the right thing, who are consumed with errors and omissions, and want to make sure that they are providing appropriate service and appropriate coverage and appropriate risk coverage to their clients. Well, this is expensive, especially if 30% of the older agents are going to retire. You're going to have a lot more of these folks who want to talk, and human contact is expensive, right? And so I would encourage you to think of ways to still provide a personal experience, but to use technology to do this. Things like a recommendation engine, so that they can remember that you have specialized endorsements, right? Restaurateurs in Florida typically prefer the $20,000 med pay limit. And did you know that this restaurant qualifies for our tip endorsement? Did you remember that we have this? It's only $18 more a month. Agents love that. That's one way of helping them. Tools like class code finders, business income calculators. One CSR told me about a particular carrier that has apparently a really good business income calculator. She says she uses it for all of her customers, whether or not they're writing the business with that company. So these kinds of tools become important. But the user experience on your portal is also quite important, right? Hover over help, not just what goes in the field, but why it goes in. Data prefill. They don't always know. One CSR I spoke with, she said about a particular carrier, she said, I don't know why they ask me such stupid questions, like what is the construction of the building? Like, how am I supposed to know that? They're the underwriter. And my initial reaction was, oh, girl, you don't know your job. And then I thought, no, I think she's right. How are they supposed to accurately know the difference between a construction class 6 or a 5 or a 4? That's not always visible, right? And we can buy that data, and it's more accurate. So why do we make them fill out these forms and gather this data when we can buy it? So this different level of digital engagement by generation, to me, was the most surprising outcome of these two surveys. And I would encourage you, as you think about how you enable your agents to work with you more effectively, to think about how do you blend the digital with the human. It's easy for us to think about how to automate everything, right? We want to pull the friction out, we want to streamline the time frame, we want to use business rules, and that's all very important. But there is a cohort of people that is going to be growing over the next 10 years that need that help and need that support. And I believe, although I don't have the data, that it has to do with their level of comfort and knowledge of the services and the solutions that they're providing. This is a very, very busy chart. I'm sorry. And again, if you want a copy of the slides, just let me know. We asked the agents, how do you interact with your carriers today, with your preferred carrier today, with each of these different transaction types? And we came back a little later in the survey and said, how do you expect to be interacting with your carriers in 3 years? And so these are now sorted by the difference, by the amount of change. What you see here is new business quoting, personal lines. 40% say that they are currently engaging digitally, all or mostly digitally, for new business quoting for personal lines. But 60% expect to be doing that in 3 years. Now, let me just say that you would say, well, okay, well, everybody's doing that, right? No, we just did a different survey, and I didn't put the data in here, where we asked carriers about their straight-through processing rates. First of all, can you straight-through process, and how much is going through straight-through processed? 20% of personal lines carriers do not have straight-through processing implemented for personal lines. So if you're not doing that today, your agents expect you to be doing that today. Getting help on an account, 35% do that digitally today, 53% expect to be doing that in the future. Big gap. Lots of expectations. And if you think about 3 years, that's not a lot of time for an insurance company to be building out this feature functionality. Policy inquiries, 45% today, 60% tomorrow. That's a 30% increase, right? 15 points. They expect that you will have that enabled for them. Reporting claims, billing questions, new business quoting for middle market and large commercial. I find this one interesting because quoting middle market or complex commercial is really hard, right? There's a lot of data to be entered. And generally what agents say is they're not going to do it. They're going to package it up, they're going to email it over to you, they'll let you do all of the data entry, and then download it into their agency management system, right? It lets them avoid all of the data entry costs. And yet what you see here is that it's a 13-point differential, which again is almost 30% of agents who expect and want to be engaging digitally, and 40% who already are. Now, of course, there's a question, how do you define middle market, right? Everybody defines that differently. But when you think about accounts with large schedules, whether it's vehicles or buildings or equipment floaters, if they're going to be engaging digitally, if that's their expectation, you have to find a way of extracting that information easily, letting them upload an Excel spreadsheet, letting them upload a PDF and having your technology scan that and pull the data in so that they don't have to enter it. And we see this with some of the platforms and the exchanges that are happening, right? We're going back to this issue of I want multiple quotes. You look at a platform, think about a Bold Penguin, or think about a Tarmika or a Bindable, and these platforms that are focused on helping the independent agent manage these multiple quotes. Let me enter the information once. Let me get the quotes from many, many carriers. Let me have the master supplemental app so that I don't have to remember what questions to ask. Let me download into a single proposal so I don't have to assemble it all. Let me manage my workflow. Let me get data around who's actually writing, right? You might come to me and say, I want more manufacturers, and if I can say, I'm sorry, you haven't written any that I've sent you, right? This is all very valuable. And so we're back then to this issue of comparative raters, right? If you are thinking, as an agent, that I expect to engage digitally because I have to reduce my margins, and I have to provide these multiple quotes, and I have to provide better services, this is a very interesting piece of data for you to be thinking about as you think about how to enable the agents. Handling the renewals, a big increase there, checking on claims. Updating and managing my licenses, 49% today, 61% tomorrow. And again, I think driven by the mergers and acquisitions that are going on in the world of the independent agency. Small commercial, a lot of folks can do that today. 47% say I can already quote small commercial business. 54% expect to be doing more of that in 3 years. And so if you're not currently allowing them to quote small commercial, which might be BOP, but it might not be, it might be small packages, something to think about. Compensation and commissions, a little bit of an increase. Contests and other incentives, a little bit of an increase. And so you can see that the agents themselves, who are themselves trying to become more digital and avoid the digital displacement using technology, expect that you are going to enable that. They expect that you are investing in the portal technology, that you're investing in platforms, that you're investing in comparative raters in order to help them transact more efficiently and more quickly in a digital manner. Now, If they're engaging digitally, remember they said the number one thing was the relationship. And if they're engaging digitally, is that going to change the relationship? And what they thought was, if these expectations come to pass, how do you think you would rate these aspects of your relationship? And so an increase, today they said that 32% would give them a 4 or 5, very satisfied, but 39% would be satisfied if you can do all of that in 3 years. If you can do everything that they want you to, the satisfaction with your efficiency goes up by 7 points, which is 25%. The personal relationship did not drop. Now 39 to 40, to me, that's the same number, right? It didn't drop. So the mere fact that you're going digital does not necessarily mean that they expect that relationship to go away. And similarly, their effectiveness at working with me, 47 to 46, slight drop, but really that's the same number. And so this process of engaging and building out the ease of doing business, the technology, hits the number two thing that they say is important to them when it comes to choosing where to place a business. Number two thing that their preferred carrier is providing, and it doesn't seem to have any expected impact on the relationship. Now, the relationship with an agency is interesting because it is important to them. They highly value the relationship with their underwriters. They highly value the relationship with their marketing reps. In fact, they trust their marketing reps more than they trust a lot of other things. They told me, a lot of them have told me that, if an insurance company sends me an email, I put it in a folder in my Outlook. If my marketing rep sends me an email, I open it up and read it. So the relationship between the underwriter, the marketing rep, and the agency is important, as is the relationship between the principal and the executives of your company. And the reason that relationship is important is because they want to have somebody that they can go to when they need help, who will trust that they're not just trying to pull one over on you. They're trying to provide great service to their customer, and not every customer fits perfectly in a box. And so if it doesn't fit in the box and they need intervention, they want to know that they have a solid enough relationship that they can go to the company and get the intervention they need to provide the service to their customer, and that it won't be held against them, that you won't think negatively of them, that you trust them to be trying to do the right thing for your mutual customers. Now, we asked the agents, how comfortable are you with Policyholder SelfService? So we listed a bunch of things, and the dark blue is, well, I would prefer to do this for the policyholder. And the light blue is, I'm okay if the policyholder does this themselves. Right? So the very bottom one, the one that they are the most comfortable with, frankly surprised me, a change of address, a change of location. That surprised me, because to me that's an underwriting issue. But they were totally fine. 78% said, yep, totally fine to have a policyholder do that. Make a payment, yep. Download policy documents, yep, all good. Get their certs, input renewal information. Wait, suddenly this is getting that 50-50 in inputting their renewal information. Accessing loss control recommendations, submitting payroll reports, doing their premium audits. Requesting cancellation, suddenly now 57% say no, do not let them do that, they should come through us. Requesting policy changes, 58%, nope, has to come through us. Analyzing loss information, 61% say, let us do that. And 62% say they should not be able to access their own loss runs. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this, and I'm going to just pull out, I have a couple of quotations that I think illustrate these different points. Okay, wait a minute. So, some of them want to maintain that contact because it's around the potential for disintermediation. Remember how concerned they are about being disintermediated by digital and by Policyholder SelfService. So here's an interesting quote. I'm a little leery of digital from start to end. That's a way to cut out the agent, because that's what that leads to. The carriers, they're always looking for ways to eliminate the agent. Or here's one. There are certain things like customer portals, I'd like that to reside here. I'm not sure if that's helping me or hurting me, but I want the control. I want it to come to us first. So we're the conduit. We're the professional. There are some carriers that would rather pass us by. I'm not sure that that's their intent. They're probably just trying to increase their focus from a branding standpoint. But for us, that's a balancing act. Do you want to be disintermediated? Others are concerned about maintaining the knowledge of the customer, right? Both to manage the relationship, but also from the errors and omissions standpoint. Remember, they're consumed with errors and omissions. So here's one that says, we'd rather control that. Not that we're holding anything back, it's just that we would rather know what's going on so that we can touch the clients and hold their hands. I prefer that the customer not be able to log on and make changes in their coverages without us. I don't like that. I mean, sometimes I don't know, it puts us in an E&O spot. You get this change, where did it come from? Who requested that? And I think one of the other problems is that the insured gets something before we do, and then they call us asking about a document that we haven't even received yet. It's very frustrating. And then some, even those who are willing to extend policyholder services, see it as an inevitable client choice, and yet they still are concerned about providing access to loss runs and endorsements. So here's one. While I don't have any heartburn over it, self-service, personally, I think a lot of clients want the instant gratification, and I think we need to be able to offer some of that stuff. The loss runs? That's a scary one, isn't it? As soon as they ask for loss runs, you know what happens. I'd say negative on loss runs. Another one said, well, it's their information, so I don't personally have any issues with it, but I would have an issue with loss runs. That's a red flag that they're shopping, and we want to be ahead of that. A copy of their policy, yes, CSR 24 all the way, but notify us if there's activity making changes. You can request it, but let us make sure it's the right change. And this E&O issue around these changes impacts the use of your call center as well. I know a lot of insurance companies have service centers where any ongoing servicing of that account, your company is providing, and you charge them a little bit of commission. And by the way, the amount that you charge has an enormous impact on whether or not they'll use it. I did one study on this where the carrier who was charging 3 points had like the lowest level of use of the service center, and the carrier who was charging 0.5, half a point, had like 80% of their agents using it. So the price matters. But here's where it becomes challenging, is if you only have part of the account, right? And if the other part of the account, that company does not have a service center. So I've got my package with a company that has a service center. I've got my work comp, maybe with a company that does not. And now I'm still working it because I still have to call on the work comp. So I didn't really avoid the cost of contacting the customer. And if they go to the package carrier and make a change and I don't know about it and don't make the same change on the work comp side, I'm in an E&O situation. So a lot of very interesting things around self-service and around the kinds of things that companies are providing. Now, so while we say agents want to control it all, for very good reasons, this is a very interesting view from the policyholder side as well. So we work from time to time with another firm called Barlow Research Associates. And we collaborated on this survey where we surveyed the agents on the level of self-service that they thought should be extended. And they surveyed the policyholders. What would you like to do? And so on the one hand, we can say, oh gosh, they don't want to give this up to the policyholders, but look at this, the policyholders don't really want to do it. So the agents are actually, in many cases, fairly aligned here. So these, again, are sorted by the difference. The blue is that the customer wants self-service, the dark blue is the agent wants self-service. So the areas where they're most not aligned is the customer would like to do things like submit their premium audit reports, verify payments, obtain loss runs, and get their certificates of insurance. They're pretty even on making a payment that's fine for policyholders to do it, or downloading policy docs. When it comes to things below that, inputting renewal information, policyholders would rather that the agent do it. Analyze the loss information, let the agent do it. Request cancellation, don't want to do that. Access loss control recs, policyholder doesn't want to do that. They want to get it from the agent. Requesting a change of address, or requesting other services like loss control or audit disputes or payments, the policyholder would prefer that the agent do that for them. Agents play a very, very valuable role. We did a study last year where we asked small businesses, would you rather buy online or would you rather buy through an independent agent and pay more money? And 60% said they would rather buy through an independent agent and pay more money because they want advice, they want multiple quotes, And they all believe that if they ever have a claim, that they're going to be in a battle, a war with the insurance company, and that they will need the agent to advocate for them, which, by the way, is a brand issue for the insurance industry in general. And gets to that very early slide of what can you be doing? Be a better insurance company, have a strong brand. So on the one hand, we can say, the agents want certain things to reside within their control. And what you can see is for many of those, that aligns with what the policyholder wants as well. So I want to make sure we have time for questions. Well, let me do a quick summary of what I think is going on here. The agents are going through this massive transformation. They're trying to figure out how to use technology. Their employers are beginning to retire. They're bringing new folks in. The policyholder expectations are changing. Their margins are being squeezed. And they are doing whatever they can to try and manage all of that, but they're not all equipped. Many of the agencies don't have good technology. They don't know how to think about technology. They don't know how to manage technology. I walked into one agency office, this still pains me to think about it. You walk in and there are shelves with rows and rows and rows of paper files. We used to call those the dailies. It's their policy files. They haven't figured out how to go paperless. And when I asked him, why do you have all this paper? I mean, this is really expensive, having all these shelves. He's like, yeah, I don't really know how to do that. I could really use some help. I wish my insurance company, who does know how to do that, I wish that they would help me with this, that one of my companies would help. Agents place business where it's easy, and they are very upfront about it. They will say, make it 25% easier, I will place 25% more business. I'll tell you, though, that in studies that we've done, most insurance companies don't measure that very well. They're not good metrics that you're constantly looking at, like how long does it take to get a quote? How many keystrokes are there? How hard are these keystrokes? Most insurance companies, when you ask them how you measure ease of doing business, it's around things like complaints, or they talk about it in the Agency Advisory Council, or our marketing reps tell us. So I would encourage you to think about more solid metrics for measuring ease of doing business, given how important it is to the independent agent. Even the best insurance companies have room to improve. You saw there were things down there, down at the lower left quadrant, that could be improved. And if you go and look at your own agents and ask them to rate you on how you're doing compared to how important things are, most carriers that I've worked with doing that find things up in that improvement quadrant. So think about the kinds of things that you need and tailor that to your agency plan. Again, you've got this, small agencies, large agencies, you've got young agencies and older agencies. And so you have to think about this mix of digital and the blend of human. Assess your capabilities against your peers, because you might think you're really good, but if everybody else is better, guess what? You're not getting the business. And so it's this constantly moving market. We surveyed a bunch of carriers in May, June, around their portals. Where are you today? Where do you want to be? What are you aiming for? And virtually everybody said, yeah, we're kind of middle of the road today, and we plan to be world-class. But guess what? If 70% of the carriers are aiming to be world-class in their portal, that world-class suddenly has become middle of the road. So you have to monitor what everybody else is doing, keep on top of it so that you can be the one that is the easiest to use. And lastly, prioritize your investments in agency enablement with the things that are important to them. Whether that is ease of doing business, or whether that's compensation, or whether it's the participation in the comparative raters, there's a lot of different areas that you can invest in. Your challenge is, which should I do? And with that, I think that we are about out of time. So thank you so much for coming to this session today. I hope you found it interesting.